Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Girl Got Goals podcast with Marci and Kimberly. Episode 31, last episode of the What the Fuck is Happening to Me series. You guys are probably tired of hearing us beat a dead horse at this point about what the hell is happening to my body? Why am I acting like this? And no, I'm just kidding. But anyway, today we saved the best for last because this is the one that everybody's really focused on, right? Is fat gain and muscle loss during menopause. So why that happens, what we can kind of expect during the menopause transition from perimenopause to menopause and past really the 40 plus age range is kind of what we're looking at. How you can kind of combat that and just kind of, nutrition, training, hormonal stuff, just really the overall overview of what to expect and how to do better, I think is what we're going to talk about today. I was just telling Kimberly, I've never felt so prepared and so unprepared on any topic of my whole entire life because I'm literally living this shit as we speak. And I've had almost probably 7 years of this, under my belt now. But I'm still in the thick of it and I'm still trying to trial and error, experiment with what works best with my body. And, there isn't a one size fits all application out there. So I really can't say, hey, ladies, if you do X, Y, and Z, you're going to lose 20 pounds by Friday, which is all like the taglines that you hear. That's all bullshit. Anybody tells you that, it's bullshit. I mean, I've been working on my body now, strength training for 4 years. I mean, it's a process. It takes a lot longer than you think, and it's going to be slower than you think. But as we'll learn during this episode, consistency is key. And small changes over time is what really gets you there. So,
yeah. You'll get there.
Eventually,
maybe one day I'll arrive somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I look back and I go, well, I'm better than what I was. I may not be where I want to be, but I'm definitely better than what I was when I started. So that's a win. I'm trying to focus on the small things and really take into account the changes I have made and celebrate myself for those instead of being so hard on myself. And it's really been really good. I got off social media so I would quit comparing. I think I had like a little bit of body dysmorphia, always looking at the ideals, always, all the time in front of my eyes. It just wasn't healthy for me. And so now I'm trying to look at regular life and be grateful for my life. And
well, I was just telling you a while ago that when I was talking, I went and had a lymphatic massage today, very first one. And the lady was asking me about, bodybuilding and stuff. And I was just telling Marci before we started that I had showed her like a before and after because she was asking about the building muscle. And sometimes it's even odd for me. Like every now and then I'll be flipping through my phone and I'll see. So I had taken a picture this past year when I won and did like my front pose side by side and then the back pose of my first show and this past show. And it's been 7 years? Yeah, it was 7 years difference. So, when you're in it every day, you don't see the small changes. And it's hard for me to even look at that picture now and realize that was me, And so like you're saying, how far you've come, it just kind of hit me. Sometimes we don't notate or we don't reflect. You could even take pictures of your body when you start trying some of this new stuff or journal. You've talked about before how journaling has helped you just in mindset, but it could also help in this, journaling different things that you've tried or how you're feeling and then look back and reflect over that. And you might be surprised at how much you have changed and not realized it.
Yeah. And that can really go both ways too, because that's kind of how I started my health and fitness journey was you could gain a little bit over time. You could start going, we're talking about a journey where we're getting healthier and better and stronger, but you may find yourself as a listener, not you, Kimberly, but as a listener, you may find yourself on the other spectrum, like 5 pounds here and there just crept up year after year, and you just kept gaining. And then you look at yourself every day and you really just didn't realize how much you had gotten away from your ideal body or where you want to be. And that was me, to kickstart all of this in my journey was, I looked at a picture's worth 1,000 words, a picture of myself at the hunting camp. And I was sitting in one of those metal folding chairs eating breakfast. And somebody had taken the picture from the back and my ass was wider than the metal folding chair. And it was the most I had ever weighed in my whole life, not pregnant. I was working full time. I was going to school full time. I was raising kids. Going to the gym was not on the agenda. Eating healthy was not on the agenda. I was putting whatever in my mouth just to survive at that point, so a little over time goes both ways. You get into this position a little bit over time, not paying attention to the small things. And that's how you're going to get out of it, is kind of where I'm going with it, is a little bit over time, consistently making slow, changes and being consistent with those changes. And like my grandma said about pregnant, she's like, it took your body 9 months to get that way. It's going to take at least 9 months to get back. You got to give yourself ever how many years you've been sedentary or eating whatever, or not being healthy, not going to the gym, it may take you that many years to get to your ideal body. Hopefully
and when
not.
you're going, right. Well, and I know people thinking, what's that got to do with menopause? And I know menopause sometimes will just, hit us. I feel like I was fine and then I wasn't. Boom, where did it come from?
Yes.
That is just me. I don't know if other people had symptoms that just crept up, but I just felt like it just hit me out of nowhere. But what we have to do to resolve some of this and get back to, as we air quote say, feeling normal or feeling somewhat ourselves again, will take, sadly, longer than it hitting us, because you're going to have to get your, you figure out now what works for you food wise, because your metabolism is slowing down. And, you might have been used to able to just stop by fast food and eat whatever you wanted to. And now we can't. So you have to learn to adjust to that changing in your lifestyle. And it can be hard, Yeah,
what you've done all the years that's been working for you all of a sudden isn't working anymore. And that's why we've named the series What We Did. What is happening to me? What is going on? Because you've lived your life a certain way up to this point. And like you said, all of a sudden it just really slaps you in the face. Like, I'm so off track from where I thought I would be in my life, or where I've always been. I've always been able to hold my shit together. I've always been able to maintain this size, this weight. I've always been able to think quickly on my feet and multitask. I've always been able to have the energy for everything. And then all of a sudden, bam, But it's just something we all have to go through. There's one thing for sure, is that every woman is going to go through menopause. If you, age and get older, hopefully, God's grace, you're going to go through it. And it's a transition and it's a rite of passage, and we just have to be aware of it. And that's the whole purpose of this series, to shed light on it, to bring awareness to it, because then it's not as scary, I think.
Yeah.
If I can put a name and a face to something, and if I can know what it is and how to combat it, it makes me not as scared when it slaps me in the face, that I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what that is.
Yeah, I was talking to a lady the other day at work, and I asked her, because she's got some things going on, and it hit me, and I told her, I said, it just hit me the other day that there are 3 women working at this store, and we're all going through menopause.
Ooh, is that scary sometimes?
I was like, people should be concerned coming in here.
You should have a sign on the door. Beware of menopausal hussies. Screw the dog. You don't need the dogs. 6 Sheila on them.
I know, right? But I was asking her, because she has other health problems. She has fibromyalgia and different things. And I told her, I said, when's the last time you went to the gynecologist? Did you ask her, have you done blood work? And she said, well, she asked me how I was. I was like, oh, okay. And she actually said the same thing that I think it was the last time we talked, might have been the time before that, how I said it just clicked the other day that I throw everything off on my thyroid. Every time I don't feel good, that is my go-to. It's just that. And I just throw it out of my mind of, when I go to the doctor, he'll check my, labs, blah, 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 blah. And that's what she was saying. She was like, well, it's just, and I was like, but it might not be. You're 53 years old. It could be that you could take, HRT and feel somewhat better. Yes, it's not going to get rid of that underlying issue, but it could help with some of the other issues that she has. So it was just strange that I was like, of course, we're not always the only ones that do that, but, just talk to somebody else that was doing the exact same thing that I'm doing. So there's got to be other women out there that have those, oh, well, I got lupus. Oh, well, I got this, or I have children, or I'm doing this at work. So that's why I'm tired, or that's why I'm this. And it could be just as simple as not being those things. You could have more energy, but you just got some issues going on. I mean, what's it going to hurt to have it checked? Right?
Yeah. And I was just talking to Olivia today about something very similar. It's like, you don't know how bad you feel until you don't feel bad anymore. She has recently undergone some testing that has revealed that she has Hashimoto's. So she has the antibodies that are, attacking her, autoimmune, attacking her thyroid. But she's only 24, so it hasn't got to a level now to where her T3 or her T4 is suffering. So had they not tested the antibodies, they never would have known, but she's having symptoms, already of hypothyroidism. So that's what prompted her to get a primary care physician and pursue this testing. And the main thing they told her, because what they're trying to do is prevent her body from going into full-fledged, autoimmune and her T3 and T4 suffering, and her having to go on like thyroxazine or whatever it is. So they're trying to do like diet changes. And they told her the main thing that she could do is to stop eating gluten. Well, hello. Her mother's been telling her that for years, which all my kids, all that kind of stuff's kind of hereditary, kind of runs in families. And so I've been telling my children, these are the symptoms I've had. Y'all have some of the same symptoms, some of the same issues you're dealing with. I've corrected it with diet and exercise and supplementation, and these are the things I'm doing. So they've known it, but it's another thing to like actually do it. And so she cut out gluten for 30 hours. She counted it. Like it was like on the clock. She cut it out for just 30 hours. And then she caved and ate a pasta meal. And she said immediately her stomach started having like sharp stabbing, shooting pains. She's like, I am still bloated from eating dinner last night. She said, I was so skinny and my stomach was flat before I ate that meal. And now, so I said all that to say this is like, she didn't know the effects that, her diet was having on her general health until she cut it out. And so sometimes when you're in the thick of it, especially if you're kind of blind to what's going on. Other people may see it easier than you do because you're living and it comes on slowly, just like weight comes on slowly. Fatigue, stress, sleep deprivation, bad diet, all that stuff just comes on so slowly and it accumulates to where you don't know how bad you feel and you don't know how much better you can feel until you step out of that box and start changing your habits and doing different things to kind of. I used to have a headache at 3:00 every day. It was like clockwork. It was like after lunch, I was going to have a headache every day and I was so sleepy. And, I just thought that I was tired, I just thought that I was tired and that was the way I live life. And I was going to be like that, unless something's really wrong with me now, I don't ever have a headache. So it's just, and I told her too, I said, she was so scared of giving up gluten. I was like, once you stop and you feel better, you're never going to want to eat it again. I choose not to eat it because I don't ever want to go back to feeling the way I felt before. It's an easy choice for me.
Yeah, I think sometimes, because I mean, I can remember before I even started bodybuilding or necessarily dieting, I mean, I had the attitude of, I'm going to eat what I want to eat. I don't want nobody telling me what I can eat. Oh, that's just stupid. That's just, like I necessarily didn't believe a lot of I'm just going to use the word hoopla, because it's always something, and I'm just was like, whatever. But now I realize that a lot of it is true and wish I would have known that when I was younger. I'm not going to say, it's like I was telling the lady today because she was asking me about her 15-year-old. I told you that. And I'm like, the younger you teach children to eat the right way and healthy, the easier it is for them because they don't get used to the junk, So, yes, my granddaughter and I, when she is in town, which we love popcorn, so we love going to the movies eating popcorn, which is not necessarily the worst thing you could eat. But, I mean, we'll eat some ice cream together or, we'll eat some things. I'm not saying deprive yourself totally of something, but she's very self-conscious because she has been around me since the first time I ever did my competitions. And she has now seen my body change because, I told you the other day, she was asking me, your belly's getting a little
I remember that.
pudgy, Nana. I'm like, yep, this is what happens when you eat what you want to eat, And I think it being almost 10 years old, that kind of clicked in her head, like, hey, but I'm always very self-conscious with not wanting her to think bad of her body because I would never want to make a child grow up more dysmorphia than women are going to have anyway, or thinking bad about themselves. But if you teach them that it's just healthy, we're doing this, like I try not to, I do call it my special diet, and that's what I just referred to it when she was younger, but I try not to say it like that all the time because you want them to make healthy choices. If we don't look at it like we're constantly on a diet and we're looking at it like we are making healthier choices for our body for us to feel better, I feel like changing that thought process sometimes in my brain makes it easier. Because as soon as we tell ourselves we can't have something, what do you want? You want it more.
Yeah. Well, I think, you and I, women our age, we grew up in the fad diets craze. I can remember so many different crash diets, fad diets that people tried or were on, or my mom did. My mom struggled with her weight her entire life. And so she was always doing something, and I can remember it's funny you said 10 years old because 10 years old was the age that I remember kind of first noticing my own body. And I remember noticing my thighs and thinking they were too fat. And so I was going to go on a diet that day. So all I ate was cheese and pickles that day. That was my 10-year-old brain, putting myself on a little fat diet. I ate cheese and pickles for one day and I was like, I'm going to lose this fat on my thighs. But anyway, it's like, women our age who are going through menopause now, I think our mindset is all or nothing. It's do or die. It's you're 100% on or you're 100% off. And I think that's very detrimental for us, when we're trying to lead a healthy lifestyle. And like you said, we want to be a good example for our children and our grandchildren to where they can see us leading a healthy lifestyle and making healthy choices, not choices that are just going to make our bodies smaller, but choices that are going to make us stronger and healthier and have more energy and live longer. And that all correlates to weight, and muscle. So in menopause, it's not just like about the weight change, it's about the body composition. Because when estrogen levels fall, you have like increased abdominal fat, I said it again, like the abominable snowman, abdominal fat. You have, so you're losing lean muscle mass because of the hormonal changes and you're gaining fat. So your body composition is changing, even though your weight may not be changing. You may start noticing a spare tire around the middle and certain things are shifting and changing. And that's due to the change in the hormones, and your metabolism and the insulin sensitivity may change. And then you have all the symptoms like fatigue and, poor recovery and lack of sleep, and all these things just compound. They make you not want to work out. First of all, they make you, not be able to work out as well as you used to in the past or as often. And things just shift and change. And the things you were doing before may not be working for you now. And I know in our brain, it's more is better, work harder, so we need to work out more. We need to do more cardio. We need to do this. We need to eat less, and those things could just tank your hormones, could raise your cortisol, could make your insulin resistance even worse. And then you have less sleep and poor recovery. And it's, sometimes now we're going to have to take a moderate approach, and we're going to have to take a less is more. And we're going to have to take a step back and really listen to our bodies and how it feels and make those more healthful choices. And I hope as we do that, then our children and grandchildren can see it. And I have noticed that in Kennedy, my youngest, as well. I wasn't necessarily very healthy for the early part of Olivia and Hunter's lives, but Kennedy has seen the most of it. And so I see her counting her calories to make sure she gets enough protein, and make sure she's eating enough calories to fuel her activities with marching band. And she wants to stay within a certain weight range, and she doesn't want to lose too much weight, but she don't want to gain too much. And it's just, she knows intuitively those things and is able to take a moderate approach because she has seen me do better in my older age instead of in my younger age where I just ate whatever and did whatever. But
I think a lot of us did that. Well, it was like this morning, I left in a hurry, so I didn't even eat breakfast. Well, that's not really necessarily all the time good either. And when you're raising your kids and you're trying to hurry up and get them out the door, sometimes I'm just grabbing the easiest thing, a Pop-Tart or, whatever you can, grab and eat on the way. Or I have been known, after you get the kids drop off, stop at the gas station and get a bag of chips and a Coke. This would be my breakfast.
Yeah,
because I was just nonstop. I think I ate a Snickers for breakfast almost every day I was pregnant with Kayla.
Oh man, when I was pregnant with Hunter, I worked at a bank. I would take my little afternoon break and I would walk down to the dollar store and I would get a Mountain Dew and a candy bar every day for my break at 3:00 in the afternoon. That was just my afternoon slump. I didn't eat breakfast. I've always hated breakfast. I didn't eat breakfast until I started, on a nutrition plan to kind of lose weight. And I'm like, you want me to eat more? You want me to eat more? He had me eating 6 times a day, and I was like, I almost threw up trying to stuff breakfast down my throat because I had never eaten breakfast before.
Yeah. So, I don't like to do it when I first wake up. I'm after a couple hours of being up. So usually about the time I get to work, am I hungry? This is you come to work to eat breakfast. We don't pay you, ma'am, to eat breakfast.
Well, you're the boss. You can eat when you want to eat. Yeah, I don't usually eat now till about 10, but I do have my protein coffee. So I am having some protein and things in the morning, to fuel my body, but I just don't eat a meal until about 10. But yep. So talking about fad diets, that kind of gets us into the nutrition category of, yes, your hormones may be all over the place and they may be fighting you tooth or nail, but you're not powerless. There are things you can do. And we wanted to cover that in today's episode of, we've already had so many episodes on hormones. Go back and listen to them if you haven't already, what they do, how they interact in your body, what havoc they cause. Hormone replacement therapy, we had a whole episode of that. So we're not going to recover all of that today. Today is really when you start seeing these body composition shifts, it's because you are losing muscle and you are gaining fat. And that is just part of the menopause transition. It's part of the hormonal shifts. You can combat that with HRT, nutrition, lifestyle, and strength training. And that's what we're going to cover today is you're not crazy. Your belly is getting fatter. Things are not working the way they should. You're doing more spin classes, but it ain't coming out right. You're not crazy. You haven't lost your mind. That is your body being very cruel, playing tricks on you. But you're not powerless. So we're going to go over nutrition. And the must-dos of nutrition is protein, protein, protein. So we want to have high protein. And I think that's one of the things that people struggle with the most when they start looking at their calories and their macros and trying to get enough protein is our society is a very high carb and fat society. Everything you eat is a carb and a fat, a carb and a fat. And it's very hard for people to get protein until you really make it a habit. For me, it's easy because I have structured my meals around protein for so long that that's just the way I eat now. But when you start doing it, it is going to be a little daunting and you have to be very intentional about planning for protein. So number one, you want to get 1 gram per pound of body weight. Or if you're very large, if you're like severely overweight, that's going to be a lot of protein for you to get. If you can get it, great. But you can do 1 gram per pound of your goal weight to start with.
Yeah.
So say you want to be 150, 160 pounds, you're going to eat 150 or 160 grams of protein per day. And you're going to start there. Protein really needs to be higher than you think.
Yeah. This is off. Well, it is about what you were saying, but, just reiterating that, talking about losing that muscle, that happens around 40, which is when you're going to be hitting this menopause. And so the less muscle that we have is what's going to equal slowing our metabolism. So that's how that's going to come into play. And it's easier to gain fat when that happens. So that's why Marci's telling you about the, protein that you need to eat that, because the more muscle we have, the more muscle that we're going to have when we are sitting around, the more you're going to burn. You need to reprogram that metabolism. And I know we've talked about this before, but I also want to tell people, if you have to even talk to a nutritionist just to get you started, because I've had friends be on those diets and be on the diets and be like, well, am not eating much. I'm only eating 1,000 calories. Sometimes also we will crash our metabolism when we do that. So you're already having problems, with being in perimenopause. You're already having problems, being older, losing muscle mass because we get inactive. And if you crash that metabolism, it's not going to matter because you're going to have to go lower and lower and lower in those calories in order to be in a deficit, because your body's going to adapt.
Right.
If I've been eating 1,000 calories for 6 months now, my body is adapting to that. So I have to drop lower than that 1,000 calories in order to lose weight, and that's not healthy. But there is a way to get that metabolism up to where you're eating more, but actually stay in the same weight that you want to be.
Yeah.
So that's a whole another series, but I just think that people need to understand that a little bit, because that can be a cycle I think people get into of, I'm not eating anything, I'm hardly eating anything. And if they are legitly telling you the truth, because I've had a few say, I'm not eating nothing, but they are not telling the whole story.
Up, it's a whole lot. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a different scenario. And that scenario does happen. But for somebody that is actually doing what they're supposed to do, has been doing this for years, but your calories are so low now, your body's just adapting to that. Right. And you might not know how to get it redone, and you might just have to for a little while, hire you somebody that can actually fix that if you can afford it.
Yeah, it's an investment into your health. It's an investment into you. It's an investment into your future. Like I've said before, when we were talking about supplements, if you really look into your budget and how much money you waste on Amazon and Starbucks and things like that, you can reallocate some of those funds for just a few months to get professional help, because it is going to take, if you find yourself in that situation where you're just eating hardly nothing and nothing's working, then you're going to have to go through a period of rebuilding your metabolism, and it's going to get worse before it gets better, kind of thing. Because if you're just looking at the number on the scale, that number is going to go up. You're going to start eating more to get your body adapted to more food, and that weight's going to go up a little. But then there's going to be a point where you can get back down to where you want, but with a healthy metabolism. So it's one of those things that you really need to be guided by a professional, during that. That's not something we can really coach you through on a podcast for sure. We just want to make you aware of it. When it comes to nutrition, you got to prioritize whole foods, prioritize protein. We have a whole episode on supplements that you can take, and they're hormone friendly supplements like omega-3s, magnesium, vitamin D, etc. You have HRT, things like that. But, it's really just going to be focusing on good, nutritious whole foods and fueling your body properly. And if you don't know how to do that, if you don't have any experience with that, that's okay. Most people don't. Even doctors are only given like one class on nutrition, one little semester, and they're not even really qualified to give you nutrition advice, because they're just taught, if you don't have enough of this nutrient, it's going to cause this disease. They are not taught how to coach you through nutrition and eating properly. You need to find like a registered dietitian or a really good health coach, something.
And I would honestly ask the registered dietitian, because to be honest, and I don't know how you feel about this, I haven't had a lot to do with them, but they're pretty much going to be what you and I know as reverse dieting. And I don't know how much they know about that. That I feel like somebody that does somebody with competitions, or even I know a lady, Wanda, that she has strictly now went towards people in menopause and older people. I think Wanda's almost 60 now. She would be somebody. So if you need her contact, just get up with me through Instagram or Facebook, or email us, and I can give you her information, because somebody like that actually deals with women. They deal with older women in menopause and perimenopause, because she's been through it and she knows how to reverse diet, because she did one of my diets for a show. So I would recommend asking the questions of if they know how to do that, because there's a difference between giving me healthy food I should eat and a diet plan than actually reversing my metabolism and building my metabolism up, because there are girls that do compete and do what we do, and they're eating 2,000 calories.
Yeah.
And they're lean.
Or more. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it is possible, but it is a journey. So it just depends on, what you want to do. But I still suggest. Go ahead.
Sorry. There's a delay on my microphone, so it's messing us up in the talk. I don't know why. But I was just going to say, everybody is different. It depends on where you are right now, because I've had different coaches through different phases of my journey, and I've learned something from all of them, and it just depends on who resonates with you at the moment and who's more specialized with what you're dealing with. There's a million probably fantastic coaches out there. And you just really have to look for who's qualified to help you in what area. And that doesn't mean they have to have a degree. Doesn't even mean they have to have a certificate. Hard Knocks School of Knowledge in real life to me is a better learner if you've done it yourself. And Wanda is one of those people, from what I can tell, who has done it herself. And she's continued to reach back and help other people do it. So she would be a fantastic resource for probably any of our listeners.
Yeah. And she's a sweetheart.
Yeah. So we've talked about nutrition, and the next thing is training. You've kind of alluded to that. The reason for these compositional shifts we are losing muscle mass. And so when we're losing muscle mass, we're losing our ability to burn calories at a greater rate. Our bodies are becoming, less efficient. And so we really need to be strength training and building muscles. If we're not putting our our muscles and our bones under stress, we're not making them stronger. If you're not making them stronger, what's the reverse? You're going to get weaker. You're going to lose ground. So you have to constantly be putting pressure and resistance on those muscles. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to go out here and work out like a man, because we're not just little men. We are women. You know, we need to be looking at training splits that are going to be for women who are like 40 plus. There's a difference because our recovery is different. Our joints and ligaments are different. Our healing is going to be different. And then we have to look at, you know, too much cardio or too high of an intensity cardio so many times a week. It's going to stress our bodies out. We're going to be constantly inflamed. We're not going to be able to recover well. Our muscles are not going to grow if they're constantly under negative kind of stress, you know. So there are a lot of important things to look at when you're a woman going through the menopause transition. You can't just go work out with your husband and do what he does. You can't just look at a guy in the gym and do what he does. You can't go be a cardio bunny like you used to be and just burn all the fat you want to burn. You know, you can't be out here like the 20-year-olds and get the same results. And a lot of it, unfortunately, is going to be trial and error. You know, you're just going to have to find a good training program for you, try it. And then if something's not working, if you're constantly sore, you know, that's a good indicator that you need to pull back some, you need some better recovery. You need to space something out. You know, you need to change your split, you know, whatever. And Kimberly's a trainer, so she can help you with that. And
nice plug.
Yeah. And there are great apps out there too, you know, that can help you. YouTube is free. When I first started working out, I watched Dana Lynn Bailey on repeat, you know, watching her workouts because she's a female. She's a physique competitor. She has way more muscle than I'll probably ever have, but the principles are the same, you know. But then I do have to find myself adapting to how my body's reacting to the training program. You know, I'll write myself this wonderful training program on paper and I'll go, oh man, this hits everything perfectly. And then I'll go do it and I'll be dying at the end of the week. And I'll be like, nope, I got to pull something back on that. You know, I got to rearrange this. I can't do legs this close to this leg day. And, you know, I need another day of recovery in here, or, you know, my sleep was shit, so I'm not going to be able to hit that weight today. You know, it's a constant game. And there again, if you don't know what you're doing, invest in yourself. 3 months, hire a trainer. 3 months is nothing. You know, it goes by so fast. I started out by hiring a trainer. Me and my friend Jessica, that's been on the podcast before, we did a buddy training session where we trained together with a trainer. And it was a little cheaper because we were both doing a session. And it was 45 minutes once a week, you know, and we did legs with Colton. And it was fantastic because it built my confidence in the gym. It helped me get used to the equipment. It kind of taught me where my strengths and weaknesses were. It helped me push my boundaries. So, you know, you need to be in the gym. You need to be strength training. Jessica, I know you're listening. Yes, I'm talking to you. You need to get back in you need to get back in the gym, start lifting again, girl. You know, we ain't getting no younger. Anyway, I'm going to call her out. She's going to be so mad at me. But if you don't know what you're doing, invest in yourself. And there's so many free resources out there, but then there's also a lot of good professional help out there, and it's totally worth it in the long run. You can spend your money now preventing things, or you can spend it later in the hospital with medicines and issues when you haven't used your muscles and now they've atrophied and you can't even lift yourself out of bed and you're having to pay a nurse around the clock to take care of you. You know, there's things like that. Or when you have osteoporosis and you're breaking bones and you can't live a normal life, you know, you have to choose your hard. Choose it now. Do hard things
or
now.
you're waving and your arm flaps flapping.
Girl, I still do that. Look at that. I make it hard and it's not that, but it still flaps. I don't know.
No, it's
I don't know what about it. It's like a turkey gobbler or something. Look at that. I know this is a podcast and you can't see it. It'll be on the YouTube video. So we've covered nutrition. We've covered training. We already know, you know, why this happens to us because of the hormones. And we can talk about a little bit about mindset and lifestyle factors. Like we've kind of already alluded to it, like sleep, stress, and emotional shifts. There's nothing like a wild hormone ride to make your sleep shit, which is going to make you more stressed out, which is going to make you have more hormonal shifts. We've done episodes on that. It's wild and it's crazy, and all of this affects your body's ability to gain muscle and lose fat, or vice versa.
And oddly, all of that, because in the very beginning, when we started all of this on the first couple episodes, we've all talked about my terrible sleeping habits. And I am here to report I'm doing a little bit better. I will admit, like Wednesday night, Friday, or, Wednesday night, Friday morning, because I didn't go to bed till about 1. But other than that, I've been doing semi good. I know I went to bed before my little reminder because, I got my phone reminder goes off at 10:30. And I kept saying I was going to keep bumping it back, but I haven't made that yet. But I feel like if I go to sleep before the 10:30, I'm doing good. So we're making a little bit of progress.
You are doing better than when you started. Yes.
Yes. And I'm going to talk to Sean when I go back to the doctor. I did also say, I've told everybody when we talked about the HRT and the troches, he only had me on the 40 progesterone. So the other night, I told you I took the 50s and I would sleep. Well, then I thought, oh, maybe I'm getting too much, and I didn't want to give myself too much, progesterone. There is such a thing as too much. So I was like, let me cut back on that. So I had not been taking it. And I've just realized that in order for me to sleep and wake up the next day feeling like I got some sleep, like I'm ready to get up and I don't feel like, just begrudging the day, I need the 50s. So I'm going to have to talk with him. And that's kind of what we were saying at the beginning of this, of kind of knowing your body and trial and error. And I'm just going to have to let him take my blood work, though, and see what that is doing by doing that. But that is something that I'm going to suggest. But in saying that, I can just tell a difference in how I feel. And when we feel better, when we wake up in the mornings, it starts your day and your mindset. And our mindset is what controls our body. So, if you wake up already not wanting to get up and feeling like dookie, well, then most likely you're going to have a shitty day, But if we at least started off good, it might go to shit after lunch, because mine usually does.
Yeah. I love that, because I've recently had an experience with that where my blood sugar was getting too low and it was causing me to wake up and pee a bunch of times in the middle of the night. And I was just like, why am I so tired? And then it dawned on me. It's like, because I'm getting up 4 times to pee in the middle of the night. I'm not getting any good sleep. And so I made a change and I got my blood sugar back right. And the first night, I only woke up at 5 a.m. once to pee. And I was like, oh my God, I felt so much better that day. And it's like when I was tired, I was struggling mentally at work. I was struggling wanting to be there. I was struggling wanting to go to the gym. It was just like everything else just cascaded in a negative manner when I didn't feel good, when I wasn't sleeping well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just, like you said, and the more rest we have, the better our body recovers to feel like doing stuff. But I had to say that for mindset, because I'm realizing that was just a huge one for me, of realizing what sleep does to my mindset, especially the older I've gotten.
It's huge. I think sleep is like the most slept on simple practice, to use a pun. But, people sleep on sleep, they're so busy trying to fit in, things in their day or me time or whatever, but it really robs you of the energy you need to do the things that you need to do in your day and enjoy your day. I mean, what is this life worth living if we're not waking up and truly enjoying our lives every day? Like, if you're not truly waking up and enjoying your life every day, like, something needs to change. Something has to be tweaked. And it's so simple. You go back to the first series we ever did on the basics. It was like water, sleep, exercise, nutrition. My daughter Olivia was like, yeah. If I hear water one more time, but I'm like, these are the building blocks. These are the foundations of a good life. Like if you don't have these things under control, no fad diet you do, no pill you take, no shot you take, like nothing's going to matter. You're still going to feel like shit. Like I'm watching 1,000-pound roommates right now because for some reason, I love reality shows and I love like 600-pound life and 1,000-pound sisters. And now there's 1,000-pound roommates, and she's taken the GLP-1 shot to try to lose enough weight to get surgery. Well, the shot's working beautifully for what it's supposed to be doing. She's lost like 60 pounds because she's so nauseous she can't eat. She's just not eating anything, but her body's starting to fall apart. Even though she's like 600 pounds and she has all this fat on her body, and theoretically her body should just cannibalize itself and get what it needs. Like it can't. Like her body's in pain. She's like falling asleep. She doesn't have any energy to do anything, and it's just like, what is it worth? You might be reaching your goal in quotation marks, losing the weight or whatever, but you're killing yourself in the end. And you're waking up every day feeling like shit. Like that's kind of the point I was with competing, is like the point to where my body was at the moment. Hopefully it'll be different in the future. I'm not hanging up my heels and I still hope to compete in the future. But for right now, it's just not in the cards for me, because I'm like, what do I have to do to get on stage? It wasn't worth me sacrificing my health and my mental, joy of life in the moment just to step on a stage for one day. It's just, I just finally was like, what is it costing me? I used to love to go to the gym. I used to love to work out. I love eating. I love all these things, but it had gotten to where I didn't love my life anymore. And it was because I was so focused, hyper focused on a goal that wasn't obtainable for me at the moment. And it was, just, and I say that to say this, like in menopause, your body's going through some things and your ideal weight may not be obtainable for you at the moment, but that's okay. You should practice compassion. You should practice kindness. You should practice acceptance for yourself and love yourself the way you are. You're like, your body's going through a lot right now and it's okay. And you don't have to stay there forever, but you are where you are and you're still living a life that deserves joy. I don't know who needs to hear that, but you deserve to be happy. You deserve joy. You deserve to wake up and love your life every day. And the body size that you see on the scale is not a representation of your success or your failure.
Or who you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for reaching goals, and I believe everybody can do it. Everybody can reach their goal, their ideal weight or their size or whatever, wherever you want to be. And I believe I'm going to reach my goal one day. I just have a journey to go through first before I can get there. There's a lot of little lessons I need to learn along the way. And what I'm telling myself is the journey is just as important as the destination, because my life is comprised of these days along this journey. And I don't want to get to the end of my life and go, well, I was starving myself for what? I hated it. I hated my life. I hated waking up. I hated this. It's like, for what?
Yeah. And then you look back and then there's regret, and that's what I'm scared of. I don't ever want to look back and regret certain things, which we all do to a point. I mean, I can look back at what I've done so far and there still be some regrets in my life that, we're all going to have that. But, the goal is to get to where we're living happy and not, like you said, being on social media and looking at somebody else. Like I told my friend the other day, in which I know she's going to be listening, and she's going to say, text me, that's me, you're talking about me. But, I said, have you ever just looked at social media and think you're the only one that made bad decisions and is broke and everybody else is doing all these wonderful things in life? She's like, yeah. I was like, sometimes I'm looking at people's social media like, well, goodness, I'm just sitting over here and they've done this and this, or they're going to this place and they're going to this place. Their life can just look so happy. in the picture. And it's just a freaking picture. And it could be a picture of a woman and her daughter. And all of a sudden you've painted this whole thing in your head scenario that her kid loves her and she's wonderful and she's great. And you had problems with your kid. And it's a freaking picture.
Yeah. But you painted this whole scenario in your mind that
and
they
you
could
don't
completely
know.
hate each other. You don't know.
Yeah, her kid could be cracked out on dope, and this be the first time they took a picture, and she posted it, so everybody thinks her life is wonderful because she feels bad about herself, and now you've made yourself feel bad. I mean, we make these things up in our head, so that has been kind of something that I have been working on myself during this whole transition. I've told you that the 7 years of changing who I am. And when I was talking to the lady today at the place, she's telling me about a journey she's been on. And, I was telling her about something. And I was like, the hardest thing for me to have accepted and learned is that everybody's path is different. And even though I was talking about meeting my husband when I did, like so soon after I was divorced the first time. And I was like, I don't know why it happened that way for me. And that there's other people that I feel like are better people than me, better Christians than me, served better than me, that deserve happiness, and they're still searching for their soulmate. And I literally met mine a month and a half after my divorce. I mean, and it all started with talking about somebody else was telling me, and this will be another life lesson, I guess, that I feel like sometimes we're quick to judge. And I was speaking with somebody the other day, and he was like, well, she met this person right after that and they got married. I don't know, if that was the reason. And I was like, well, I try not to think about it like that. I said, because people could say the same about me. And I didn't even know my husband when I got divorced. I mean, when I was telling her, I said, I signed my divorce papers in April. My divorce was final May 25th. And my husband asked me out on our first date, June the 27th. So literally it was a month later and a couple of days. And we dated for a year and literally got married the next June. So people could have been saying the same about me. So sometimes we're quick to whisper things that we know nothing about. I didn't even know him when I got divorced. So, stop looking at the other person and thinking your journey should be the same as theirs. And if it's not, then there's something wrong with you. Because there's a purpose.
Are you talking to me right now?
I could be. I am a firm believer that God has us on a certain path for a reason, and you might have to take the path less taken to get where you need to be, because there's something you need to learn that's not the same path that I needed to take, because maybe that wasn't what I needed. What I needed was the opposite way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's just important, because I know everybody, especially women, compare ourselves so much to other people. And especially when we're going through things like this and our body's changing, and why don't I look like her? Well, why don't I look like this? And, give yourself grace and know that your path is what God had planned for you. And you have to live in that moment and suck that up.
Yeah.
And be who you're supposed to be.
The one thing that I've noticed from the moment I started trying to work out and become healthier way back in the day was that there's so many spiritual and emotional, mental parallels to the physical. Like when you start working on your body physically, nutrition, strength training, things like that, I noticed that there was emotional development that was also happening within me. And that's one thing I've noticed through, my perimenopause journey with me having the bad anxiety, insomnia, things like that. There were lessons that I needed to learn. It's like trial by fire. When I've talked about this before, when you heat up the metal, all the impurities rise to the top, and you have to slough them off and then keep going until everything gets pure. The Bible even uses that reference. And when we go through things physically like this, like the journeys that we're talking about, there is so much that is, if you allow it, there is so much that can be birthed inside of us, so much wisdom and patience and virtue, and the journey I'm going through now. No, these past 2 years have not turned out like I thought they would. I thought I would step on stage sooner. I thought that I would just prep and compete, and it just didn't happen for me. But then at the beginning of the year, when we started doing the podcasts about goals and goal setting and, dream boards and stuff like that, I really had to come to Jesus meeting with myself because all my goals were so shallow. When I started really looking at them on paper, they were extremely shallow. And I was like, this is not really what I want for my life. Okay, so now I have no idea what I want. I have no idea where I'm going to go with this. I need to start digging deeper. And so that has led me into not being able to complete my dream of stepping on stage and competing is still there in my mind. But there's a whole journey inside of me I need to go through first. And long story short, what I've kind of come to a conclusion of is I was aiming for that goal for all the wrong reasons. I had a driving motivator that wasn't aligned with my spirit. And yes, I love competing. I love bodybuilding. I want to keep doing it. I want to step on stage. But the way I was doing it was not healthy for me. And I think a lot of women I see in the gym are struggling with these issues that we're talking about with muscle loss and fat gain and things. They have a driving motivator that's about a number on a scale, that's about a size, it's about how they look in the mirror, and they're beating themselves up with extra exercise, extra cardio, extra this, extra that, maybe crash diets, binging and purging or whatever. And they're not aligned with their spirits in trying to build better bodies. They're just kind of, I know that's how I felt, as I was trying to beat myself into submission. And then, why isn't this working? Well, then that's a shame spiral, because then you feel like a failure. Then you feel worse about yourself than when you started. Why can't I do this? Why can't I reach this goal? Why can't I be disciplined enough to do this? Other people
and then
are doing it.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes when we do that, then we just say, screw it. And you just go on a binge and you just eat whatever you want. I can't lose weight. I can't do this. I'm just going to be who I want to be. Then you get into this deeper hole of depression, because now you've put the weight back on. If you've lost any or gained more weight, then it's the beating yourself up that you did that and you're ashamed of that. It's just a cycle. It's just a never ending cycle.
It really is. It's a shame cycle. And you have to really break that. And that's kind of, I guess, what I'm learning through all of this is you have to reframe your goals, and you have to understand that consistency is your biggest tool. That's the hammer you should reach for to build this house that you're trying to build for your body, is consistency. It's like you're going to show up every day as your best self, and you're going to nail the basics, and you're going to do that every day. This isn't a diet. This isn't I'm going to get skinny in 3 months. That ain't happening, sister. I'm here to tell you it's not going to happen in 3 months. Anybody that tells you it can is a freaking liar, and you might lose it, but you're going to gain it back plus some. So let's just go ahead and get that out of our minds. Let's reframe our mindsets. Like, this is something we're going to do for the rest of our lives, and you might as well like it, because if you don't enjoy your life, you're not going to get up and do it every day. If you need to find exercise and movement that you enjoy, you need to find a routine that works for you. You need to find healthy foods that you enjoy eating. You need to find balance and sleep and these things that you can wake up and do every day. For me, the reason I think I struggled is I had a prep mindset and an off-season mindset. It's like, oh, I'm going to prep. I'm going to live my life like this. And then I'm off-season, I'm going to live my life like this. But it was so stressful for me because that prep season wasn't my natural rhythm. It was forced. It was imposed on me by somebody else, and it just didn't really fit my life because I hadn't made it fit. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make healthy goals for myself because I love myself and because I want to be healthy and because I want to live longer, not because I'm trying to get on a stage, because I'm trying to create a life that I love to wake up and live every day. Therefore, I will wake up and do it every day instead of, you know, if you don't like running, don't freaking run. Find something else. I love walking. I'm going to get up and walk every day because I enjoy it. I love putting on my little reality TV shows and watching the Hot Mess Express, on the TV screen while I walk for about 30 minutes. I'm sad when it's over and I have to go to work. Find something you enjoy, because if you don't love your life and you don't love yourself, like, what are we doing, people?
Yeah. Being miserable.
Yeah. And we're going to have to cut it off there because it's summertime. Kids are at home and I gotta shuffle Kennedy to a friend's house. So
Yep.
I promised her I would be on time.
Alrighty. Well, I only have one thing.
Yes.
I would say a couple of things that, and we've talked about this before, so I'm just throwing the names out there to help you build the muscle after menopause. Is we've talked about the resistance training, but you can consider adding vitamin D, creatine, omega-3, and some fatty acids.
Yep, for sure. And we have a whole episode on supplements, so feel free to go back, start from the beginning, start from our basics series, and listen back. Tons of good information in there, more than we could ever cover in this 1 hour of our podcast. And we don't even know what our next topic's going to be.
So it's going to be a surprise for us and you.
Yeah. We still got to talk about it. I got some ideas, but we hadn't talked about it. So if there's things you want to hear, ladies, email us, girlgotgoalspodcast@gmail.com. Please email us, reach out to us, tell us what you want to hear. We do this for you. We don't do this because we like to hear ourselves talk, even though we do, because we enjoy talking to each other.
We just enjoy talking to each other, not hearing myself or seeing myself.
Right. We far more enjoy just talking. We could just get on and every week and just for an hour just talk. People just listen to our conversations. There ain't no
they
telling.
would be scarred for life.
Oh God, they'd come lock us up, take away the key. Ain't no telling.
They would say we were perverted and
scandalous. We'll have to start another podcast called Scandalous.
Yeah. Late night girl talk.
Yeah. XA.
But you are, so keep growing. Bye, guys.